Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
And now at a time where individual liberty is as threatened as any time we can remember in recent history, we come to the portion of Liberty Nation Radio which we entitle Talkin Liberty, protecting and identifying threats to your individual liberty, as we're joined by who else? LibertyNation.com's legal affairs editor, constitutional lawyer, and the man that we prefer to call our guardian of individual liberty, Scott David Cosenza. Hello, Scott.
Well, I certainly prefer it too. Hello. I've tried to get the DMV to print out on my driver's license, but not just yet anyway.
Okay, we're working on it. You got special connections. We don't want to reveal what they are. But let's go straight to the Third Circuit of the federal courts okaying a high-capacity magazine ban.
Tim, Judge Kent Jordan wrote the decision. You know, my history with the Third Circuit runs deep. I attended law school within the Third Circuit, and that's the federal courts that sort of are closest to me. And New Jersey, of course, is a state I'm a refugee from because of their gun laws, and they always try to ratchet them down. This is a 10-round mag ban, calling any magazine that holds 10 rounds or more large capacity mags and banning them. Tim, it's important for me to hastily add that just last month, the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals overturned California's magazine ban. Now, we've got, the Supreme Court has refused to take these gun cases. We've talked about it again and again, that we have splits in the circuits and federal courts deciding things differently. So citizens in one part of the country are subject to different laws federally than citizens in other parts of the country. It's an untenable existence. And I think that this is just another kind of maybe the straw that breaks the camel's back on the Supreme Court finally needing to take Second Amendment cases to establish once and for all a national standard for our federal laws.
All right, let's move on to the Centers for Disease Control, which have, of course, exercised a great deal of power during this COVID crisis, and the CDC's Eviction Moratorium is threatening landlords with $100,000 fines and a year in jail for noncompliance.
Well, it seems to me, Tim, like they conjured the power out of the air, which is why I bring it to the table for us to talk about for any eviction that they make. If any tenant of theirs who makes up to $200,000 a year for joint filers, they can't be evicted for failure to pay rent. It is a staggering imposition, Tim, on the country's landlords, many of whom are not, giant global not that those corporations shouldn't be able to make a buck too, but there are also many people who depend on rental income for a non-lavish lifestyle. And I think that if you asked any American, did the CDC have the power to do this, 6 months ago, everybody would say no. Well, there is no new law in force that allows them to. The previous payout and combined with eviction restrictions has expired. So without new legislation, they've just done it. And it seems like a massive power grab, Tim.
So let's go to Kenosha next, because the president was there, which stirred up, as always with Trump, a great deal of controversy. Joe Biden is headed there a couple days after Trump. But you've done an awful lot of analysis of the shootings in question, the things that have stoked all the violence in Kenosha. So give us that analysis of these shootings that we hear so much about, but almost randomly through TV and news reports.
Tim, Jacob Blake was shot by Kenosha police officers. It has been misreported that he was unarmed. He was shot in the back, but that has to do more with the body mechanics of how he was moving at the time of the shooting. We have every reason to believe, in terms of the evidence that's presented, that he was violently resisting arrest and at least had one weapon, and alleged that he may have had a firearm in the vehicle that he was entering. So while I don't know that any or all of the 7 shots that were lodged into the man were justifiably shot, the idea that it was just some act of racist violence for no reason is not supported by any of the facts and evidence. Then we have the Kyle Rittenhouse shootings, Rittenhouse was involved in the protests. He's a 17-year-old who's currently being prosecuted for first-degree murder, among other very serious crimes. He shot 3 people, killing 2. He missed a 4th person he shot at. And I have a detailed self-defense analysis of all those shootings on LibertyNation.com. And my analysis, Tim, is that Rittenhouse has a classic self-defense justification for each and every one of those shootings. And I can find no evidence where the DA has provided any, forget about evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, but even probable cause that Mr. Rittenhouse committed murder, and first-degree murder at that.
I'm wondering, Scott, in all this, whether the facts even matter anymore, because all of these shootings stoke a narrative on one side of the political aisle.
Tim, I think it's very important that we keep judges out of the political process as much as possible, because we know that prosecutors who are deeply involved in the political process cannot be trusted on the left or the right to be neutral.
Well, let's get out of violence and COVID and into something that, well, it's not a whole lot better, but at least it's a different subject. The state of Washington, where Attorney General Bob Ferguson has sued the big-time vape company known as Juul. Why?
Well, let's say that for my I'm laughing because, you know, the real reason why I believe is because it gives him power to do so. That goes back to the prosecutor discussion, right? Which is he's a politician. He says that it's because they used bright colors and candy flavored vaping juice along with young models to entice young people to use their products. Now, if you said, Tim, well, gee, even products that are designed specifically for seniors use younger models, bright colors, and candy flavors to sell whatever products they may be after, I would say, yes, of course they do. And there's no way that Juul could get pre-clearance for its advertising. It's not like there's some magic list where you can say, all right, if I use these things, am I going to be sure to not run afoul of the law? It is, to me, a absolute imposition on the Juul companies, right, to just engage in legal advertising for their product, Tim.
It's interesting, Scott, that in Washington state, marijuana's legal and so are nicotine vapes, and yet they're going after the nicotine vapes and not so much after the weed. Interesting choice. And let's conclude by talking or providing an update about the Michael Flynn case.
Well, it's a short update, Tim. The case was before en banc review at the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, and Judge Emmett Sullivan won, which is to say that the Michael Flynn team was hoping to have Judge Sullivan removed and a new judge appointed and directed to dismiss the criminal charges against Mr. Flynn. The D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that the case should stay with Judge Sullivan, at least for the time being. They didn't rule on the substantive matters before the court, much as to say that the remedies that Michael Flynn has were still available, even if Judge Sullivan didn't do his job further down the line. So the ball is back in Judge Sullivan's court. He can either do the right thing or not, and Michael Flynn will once again then be forced, Tim, to appeal the decision.
Okay, well, thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Tim.